Hi folks. I wanted to do a video on death, which I'll get to eventually. As I was going to switch on the camera, I was thinking, what am I going to talk about? And it's not about death, but almost in a way, it's like about fear. What do we fear the most? Okay, yeah, okay. There's many things that we fear. We fear the unknown. We fear death, which is the unknown. We fear failure as well. Okay. But most of all, I think we fear our own minds and our own feelings and our own potential for freedom. Freedom being that we're an individual, okay, and many other things, but they were not governed by a God in a way of the Bibles or religions. They were not governed by government, which actually means to govern the mind. You know, there is no body above us in a way, and at the same time there's no one below us. We're no slave to anybody, and we're no master to anyone. We don't wish to be a slave, and we don't wish to be a master. We don't wish to play in that kind of duality. We wish just to be what we are, whatever that means. But we don't wish to have. So we fear. I'm telling you, we fear ourselves, and so we fear our minds. We fear our emotions. We fear making our own choices. Making up our own minds, thinking for ourselves, seeing and interpreting life and reality for ourselves. Okay, on an individual level. And so I think to myself, what is it that we fear terribly about ourselves? If we can get into that, what are we so scared of? I'm saying really, are we scared of being out of control? Therefore, so we need other people to govern us? We need to sort of put our hands in the lives of other people, and we do that emotionally, which perhaps, if I remember, I'll get into a story, of how we actually give our emotions over to the crowd as well, and to other people in our lives to take responsibility for our emotions. Okay, and how we blame everybody else and whatever it is. And so okay, so that's something else. But so what is it about? So we're afraid of losing our mind, getting out. What are we afraid of? We're afraid of not being liked. Yes. We're afraid of not fitting in. Yes. But I think we're afraid of being alive. Yes. Being afraid of being an individual. Yes. But are we afraid of our own heart? Are we afraid of our own depth? Are we afraid of our own sensitivity? And how sensitive we are? Are we afraid to feel to smell what the rose smells like for ourselves? Are we, are we afraid to know what love is from our hearts and not being told what love is? Are we afraid to have faith in something that we find in ourselves to have faith in something or other, or rather are we given faith? This idea of God and whatever else, and to you know what I'm saying? Like, we're given prescriptions all the time on life. And so why do we put our hands and our value in the hands of other people? Why are we scared to go our own ways? What is so terrifying inside? Right? What it's so strange that how does this world conduct itself towards us, that that even as a child you are taught to dishonor and to be scared of the very thing that makes you unique and true and an individual. When you think, what kind of society and culture do we live in if that's the case? Because I think that we've been made afraid of ourselves. We've been made afraid also massively of our own minds. we've even been made afraid of our own spirituality, or whatever that word is, or consciousness. Like, we're afraid that if we interpret, I don't know, nature as different to science or the Western world does, that there'll be something wrong with us. Like, if you have a different connection to nature and the trees and the animals and the birds and whatever it is, it's like, that science doesn't agree with, or that religion doesn't agree with. If you have a, then you're like woo-woo type of thing. Like, we fear our own intuition. We almost fear our own, dare I say it, godliness or divinity, in a way. It's like, we don't think that there is anything. I mean, I'm telling you, there's no way that the general masses of people out there that believe that there's anything divine about them. I think, they just believe that it's all servitude. Servitude to the hive mind, servitude to God, to authority, to government, to money, to fame, to fortunes. You're in servitude, and so that's the only thing that you are good at. This fly is frustrating me. That you're good at is that's it, being part of the rat race. That's it. That's all you are told over and over again. And to deny your sensitivity, to deny your individual thinking, to deny your curiosity, to deny your imagination, to deny everything that doesn't fit in the line with what everybody else is doing. And so we are become neurotic about our own experience of life, from emotional, psychological, spiritual, from all aspects. We are so far driven away from ourselves. Okay? Like, who can do that to a child, really? To children? It's really... Well, we know what kind of world we live in. So it makes sense. But so I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that from most of it all, what we fear the most, again, people say it's not that the fear, it's not Nelson Mandela who made this quote. It's not that our darkness that we're most afraid of. It's our light. It is. It really is our light. That it's not so much our darkness, And so, isn't that bizarre? What has happened to us? What has happened to us? It's amazing. And I've been reading just comments on some videos, and also had a discussion with some people that have just said how they've given, they put their hands in their partner's lives. There was this one lady who commented on a YouTube video of mine. It wasn't a Dr. Gabor Mate video that I uploaded, and she was saying how she put her emotions in her husband's hands, type of thing, and then demanded for her husband to see what she was doing, to see that she was sacrificing herself for her husband, and he wasn't willing to see it because he didn't even see what was going on. And in a bit of conversation with this woman that I've had, I mentioned that we've been talking back and forth for a while now, and I was just saying we came to an understanding that, she came to an understanding that what she was doing is that she didn't want to take responsibility for her own emotions and feelings. So what she did was that she said, well, I'm going to do everything for my husband. I'm going to compromise exactly who I am for my husband. I'm going to become everything that my husband wishes and desires. Alright, and it doesn't matter how I emotionally feel. Okay, even though her husband was a narcissist, is a narcissist and taking full advantage, that didn't matter. Okay, that didn't matter. It was as long as I can give over my emotions. Yeah, this fly, it's just, it's huge, this fly. As long as I can sort of surrender my emotions, because what I'm saying is that we don't want to have our emotions. We feel that they are burdensome. Okay, we don't want to have our own thoughts because they're burdensome. We don't want to have anything of our own. They're worrying, they're a heavy burden to us. Okay, and so what we do, with our emotions, right? So what this woman's doing, we find scapegoats. We find in life where we can dump we can dump our emotions on, like that's why we blame so many people in our lives, and most everybody's blaming everybody else, and there's the race game and the gender game and whatever, or the war that's going on and whatever it is, and between the rich and so we're blaming everybody else, and so we're projecting our emotions and frustrations onto others. We don't want to really own what we're feeling, towards ourselves a lot of the time. So we want to get rid of that, and so we put our emotions out there, we put our thoughts out there. It's like, okay, so tell me what you think about, because I don't want to think my own thoughts, right? They're burdensome. My feelings, I don't want to feel my own feelings. So what we do is that we sacrifice ourselves, right? Again, in servitude for something else. And so I see this in the situation with this woman and her marriage, where she says, well, I don't want to have feelings. Only feelings are going to matter are my husband's feelings. And I will just, whatever he wants, I will meet him on that level. However he wants to, you see, we give over our freedom. This woman's giving over her freedom to her husband. It's like her husband's very controlling. And she actually loves that. She loves it. Because the more controlling that he is, the less control that she has for herself. And so what I'm saying is that we become institutionalized, right? And we love being the prisoners, because there's a security in that, There's this almost like, well, I don't have to apply myself, I don't have to honor myself, I don't have to feel for myself, right? And so we're all doing this. It's ironic, isn't it? But so. We don't want to take responsibility. So that's it. We all want to have the same kind of feeling towards life. We want to have the same kind of thoughts towards life and whatnot. So I'm not quite sure how to put this, but with this woman that left this comment I've been speaking to, and she's saying that, for how many years she's wanted her husband to see how much she sacrificed for her husband, how much she's just want to see how much time I got left here. For how many years wanted her husband to see how much she sacrificed for their relationship. But also she wasn't, her husband is not even competent, is not even aware of that. He's just kind of like, you're supposed to sacrifice your life to me. I mean, he's a narcissist, so, or borderline. And so she's been, and we've had I've had this discussion with her, and she's like, well, when is he going to realize? And I said to her, well, when are you going to realize that you've rejected your own emotions and you're waiting and depending on your husband to recognize your emotions and your sacrifice? It's like, why don't you actually own your own emotions, that you let down, that you hurt, that you despair, that you've rejected yourself, that you've denied yourself, or whatever it is? Like, why are you blaming your husband? When you found somebody who could be your scapegoat, who could be that master and you could be the slave, that's what you were doing, because that's what you felt your worth was. So why are you blaming your husband? He was just doing, you bow down to, and we see that you bow down to him. That's what you did, right? You gave up your sovereignty, and then you wanted to. Your worth was to show what a good soldier you were. What I mean by soldier is what a good sacrifice how much you sacrificed, and that's what we do in our own lives in different ways. Is that we sacrifice ourselves for the greater good, okay, by becoming a good consumer, becoming a part of the matrix, whatever it is, and then we want the matrix to give us our acknowledgement. And give us our worth. Well, look how much I've sacrificed to play in this game. Now I want to see rewards. I want to be somebody with a status. I want to be recognized. And this is all ego, isn't it? It's all inauthentic self that's operating. It's all personality. Because the self has almost been murdered in a way, or has been abandoned, has been rejected. Okay? The inner self, or the true self, or spirit, or souls, has been rejected. And there's a sacrifice being made. You know, and the thing is that, folks, I was thinking, it's like we don't have initiation in our cultures at all whatsoever. There's no initiation process. If you think about it, I mean, for men or women, and so there is no becoming you. You know, like where you initiated, where you remove from the tribe for months or weeks, whatever it is, and you have to fend for yourself. And if you manage to come back alive, you know, through the forests and the dangers out there, and you manage to fend for yourself, and you've found your own, you know, sovereignty, your own strength, and you made it back, then you become a man or a woman. You go through an initiation process, but there's no initiation processes in our life. So what we do is just become part of we're never actually born. We never actually, grow. We never actually develop. We never actually take that next stage out of childhood in a way, or adolescence in a way. We never do that. And so we're always belonging. We're always belonging to our culture and to our race and to our sex and to our country and to our religion or to the hive mind or to the fashion. You're always belonging. Your life is always in their hands. You never became an independent individual, right? So your script, again, your narrative was, there was no narrative. You never invented yourself. You never initiated yourself. You never birthed yourself. You never sprouted yourself. You never blossomed yourself. Nothing ever. It is all dormant, and it still lies dormant. But you never did that. And so what's happened is that you've made a sacrifice. You've made a sacrifice. You have. Okay? And now what most people in their lives is that because there is no self, in a way, and the sacrifice is so large, that there's anxiety, and there's a whimpering, and there's a despair, and there's a fear, and there's almost like a fear. It's funny, so coming back to what I'm saying, is like there's a fear of almost a fear of the fact that we've somehow known that we have lied and abandoned ourselves and rejected ourselves and dishonored ourselves from all levels, and we've been spending most of our life. I have to start. We've been spending most of our... I keep talking about this, jeez. We're spending most of our... Because this is what I think is going on. We're spending most of our life energy dishonoring the self, and, and building massive obstacles and everything else between ourselves. So, that's why I think, in a way, that we've... You see, unconsciously or consciously, this is very hard to say. It's like, for most people who are just hive mind or just personality, and they've abandoned them. I'm just using the word self for now, okay? But they've abandoned who they are, whatever that means, and they've abandoned themselves. It's almost like they didn't even have a choice. It's just by default, hey? It's just by default. It's like they didn't really consciously choose it, did they? Or maybe they did. Maybe they did. Maybe there were times where there was challenge and there was fear and there was opportunity to grow, and they denied it, they made mistakes and they didn't correct their mistakes, and they never took responsibility. They never found the confidence, they never found the esteem, the self-esteem to challenge the adversities, to go through the pain that life was bringing them, to go through the suffering, to listen to the messages that were coming their way. It was like they just kept on saying no to life. They just kept on saying no, right? They just kept on saying, I'm afraid, I don't want to know it, I want to, run to, it's a nightmare, and I just want to lie in bed with mommy and daddy to take care of me, and so with every step of the way, with every challenge that they had, they sold themselves out, constantly selling themselves short, constantly giving into fears, constantly giving into comforts over discomforts, giving into their weaknesses rather than following their strengths, and slowly building this grave, of that they bury themselves in. I think it's Michael Tesorian, I don't know who originally, I'm going to get this quote wrong, and I've said it before. He says the ego is the ghost that rises from the death, or something like that, of the self. Okay, the authentic self, something like that. I'm butchering the whole thing, but yeah. So that's what so again, instead of becoming stronger, we became weaker. Instead of becoming more empowered, we became disempowered. Instead of becoming more independent, we became more dependent. Right? The more that we needed to take responsibility, the more irresponsible we became. And so, again, what's happened is maybe not just because by society's measures we have been told that there's no divine within and there's no self here. There's a lot of that going around as well. That there's nothing pure about you, there's nothing divine about you, that you're born into sin or whatever it is, that you're disgraceful, blah blah blah, you know, that whole shtick. And so that we were turned against ourselves. Not only that, but more so than that, have we neglected ourselves, denied ourselves, overlooked our traumas, right? Didn't take ourselves seriously, self-sabotaged, so we've hurt ourselves tremendously. You know, there's also another saying that said, no one will do more hurt to ourselves than we do to ourselves, or something like that. No one will, I mean, people cause harm, but we do the most harm to ourselves. Like, and that's not something we want to own up to and we want to hear. That's not something, you know, we would rather blame everybody else for hearing that you have done the most damage to yourself, unknowingly to yourself, but it's been you all along. Okay, everybody else helped you along the way, yes, they assisted you along, but you ultimately were the main culprit. You were the main culprit, nobody else. You say, but how can that be? Can't be that way. And again, what we're doing is not taking responsibility. Again, it's the whole denial thing, like with the Alcohol Anonymous. It's like, I'm not an alcoholic. So you are. Take responsibility. You know, there's almost something that blinds us from taking responsibility. There's almost something that blinds us from taking responsibility. And so that's it. We have abandoned ourselves. We have neglected ourselves. We haven't listened to ourselves. We didn't even feel that there was somebody to listen there to. We didn't even realize there was something there that we were sabotaging against. We never knew it because it was never allowed to flourish or flower when we, in the first place. So we will never know. We never know. And so the thing is that what I'm saying now is that for so many, it's rather easier to be a slave than it is to be a free individual, to be a sovereign individual, to be a responsible individual. It's too much of a heavy task. It's like we don't want to do that healing. We don't want to look at what we've done to ourselves. We don't want to look at how we've sabotaged and how we've spent so much of our lives doing it. It's so difficult. It's the last place we want to go. It's really the last place we want to go. Like for this woman who's been married for a long time, for 20 years or so, something like that. This one who says that she lives for her husband. I mean, you see this, mothers and fathers live for their children. They live for them. And then, they don't live for themselves. I mean, they sacrifice completely. And so for herself, and for so many people that I know in my life. I've spoken about this other guy who I know. I think I didn't upload that video, but how he has sacrificed himself. I think I might have uploaded it for everybody else. He works his arse off so he can afford to give everybody else, his family and relatives, like a good lifestyle. They're all feeding off him, so he's working his arse off just because, and giving everybody whatever they want and all the time, and not having any boundaries, because he doesn't want to upset anybody, because that's where his worth has been, is that by lifting other people up, at his own expense, does he feel that he's worthwhile. And so he doesn't want to look at that, doesn't want to realize how much energy he spent. It's chaos. It's like, he doesn't want to look at that. That's just too awful. That's just too bloody awful. This woman who's literally sacrificed herself to this narcissistic husband, who's shackled herself completely, right? Unknowingly in a way, but through her woundedness, she's done it. Okay, she's done it. And so she doesn't want to see, because now it's like, well, I owe myself forgiveness. If you've seen the movie, he don't worry, he won't get far on foot. I can suggest it. I can recommend it. It's quite a good movie with Joaquin Phoenix. It's based on a true story, and he he's an alcoholic, and he was adopted, and his mother gave birth to him, abandoned him. He never knew who she was. Apparently, all he knew about her was that she was a teacher and had red hair. And throughout his whole life, he blamed his mother, his biological mother, for giving him up, because there was something desperately wrong with him. That's why she gave him up. And so he becomes a full-blown alcoholic for other reasons as well. But he blames his mother, for leaving him, and that's why he's become an alcoholic. And one day he's very drunk, and he gets into the car with another guy, and they have a car accident. The other guy was driving, and Joaquin Phoenix lands up as a cripple. Okay, and he has to go on this road of recovery from alcohol. I'm still drinking, whatever it is. But one of the main parts of the movie, where he goes through the 12 steps, is that he has to ask forgiveness from people that he's hurt in his life for when he was drunk, when he was being, whatever it is. And then, then the guy says to him, his sponsor says to him, "But have you forgiven yourself?" So he says, "What are you talking about?" He says, why do I need to forgive myself? Why do I need to forgive myself? And he says, well, why did you get into that car that night? He says, no, or something like that. I can't remember the road of questioning that he does, but he says to him, "Well, why do you drink?" He says, "Because my mother left me." He says, "Okay, but you're hurting yourself." He says, "And why are you a cripple?" He says, "Because I was in a car accident." He says, "Well, why were you in a car accident?" He says, "Because we were on the way to a party and the car crashed." "Well, why did the car crash?" He said, "Well, the other guy fell asleep at the wheel." "Well, why did he fall asleep at the wheel?" "Because he was drunk." He says, "And you?" He says, "I was also drunk." He says, "Well, why did you get into the car with somebody who you knew that was drunk and wasn't able to drive?" He said, "Because I was so drunk." He says, "Exactly." So he says, you brought this pretty much on yourself, that you're in this wheelchair. It's got nothing to do with your mother or your upbringing or something like that. You were the one who got into the car. You were the one. Nobody forced you. You got into the car yourself. And now you're in a wheelchair, and you're disabled. I think half of his body is also, from his one arm down, is all disabled. And he says, "Have you forgiven yourself for getting into that car?" And he, so he has to stop to think about that. And so the number one person that we've got to ask forgiveness from, for the biggest hurt that we've caused, I really feel is ourselves. Is ourselves. There's no doubt about it. Self-healing. Why are we... I don't know how much time I've got. Why are we talking about the self-healing story? Like, what's important? Like, for what? So what, you can reach enlightenment or something? I don't know. I mean, a lot of people will say, why self-healing? Why get better? Why work on yourself? Why heal? Why grow? For what? So why? Like, why is it part of our story, of our narrative, our experience, to heal? For what? Yes, okay, wow, so you can be of a real great, which is, okay, I don't want to, it's not tongue-in-cheek there, but can really be of great service and to others, and bring a lot more love and light. I like that. I like they're saying love and light, but not in the new age. So much more love and light and beauty into the world. Right? And all your gifts and blessings as well. Yes, you can make the world a brighter place. Yes, that's one of it. But why? But for yourself, why? Why? Because I don't know. I'll take a stab at this. I'll take a long, big guess at it or whatever. But like in the ways that if you're not in contact with yourself, if you're not connected with what you are, your essence, of who you are, then you can't be connected to the divine. And perhaps even when you pass, there's something that's in the way of you and God, okay, and the divine. There's something that's in the way, which is your wounds. And you're in not taking responsibility and not becoming independent. In other words, you need to become a child again, which I want to talk about, in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, as it says. Right? So what does that child mean? And for myself, it's about realizing that you're beautiful, that you are divine, okay, and that you've hurt yourself terribly, and you've let yourself down immensely, okay, and that you need to ask forgiveness for yourself in order for that connection to be regained, okay. It's only through self-love that you can connect again to the divine love, or to Source, or to the universe, or to the Logos, or to Gaia. It's only through that conduit, through that conduct, through that medium, through your heart space. But you can't connect if your heart space is riddled with pain and neuroses and self-hatred and ego and personality and grandiosity. You can't do it. So the self-healing, the reason for healing and growth, is to reconnect, is to re-establish, is to remember, to rejoin again to home, okay, to home. And it can only be done through self-love. And that's the importance of it. And that's the importance of not, of asking yourself for forgiveness. Because when you're not in your power, and you're not in your strength, and you're disowning yourself, you're something that is completely abstract and completely solidified. It's something that's completely foreign to that can go through the eye of the needle in a way. Like they can, it's just you being held hostage in a way, and by ego, personality, or whatever it is, and fears, and you've been held hostage. And so you cannot make a phone call, you cannot connect, right? Because you've been removed and you're held against your own will by something else. And therefore you can't connect. And only when you become empowered for yourself and you're no longer owned and you're not the slave anymore, and there's no master of the mind or ego or culture, then you are able to make your way back home. You are free. You see, you are free to reconnect in a way to the Source, to the love, to the light, right? And so self-healing, I think that's what massively it's about, and self-responsibility, so that you can make your way home. Otherwise you just keep on being lost, I think, maybe for lifetime after lifetime, maybe. And not as a punishment, because until you've done your work where you've forgiven yourself and you've embraced yourself and now you love yourself and you cherish yourself, that you are able to truly reconnect. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe not. But it sounds good, doesn't it? Folks, with that, much love. Thank you for taking the time. To all you special people out there. Indeed, indeed. Fantastic journey we are on here, isn't it? Okay, we'll chat soon. Take care.